Have you ever noticed how you can laugh with someone, share a conversation, even spend months around them, and still keep a small part of yourself hidden? You answer questions without really answering them. You smile, but carefully. You double-check people's intentions, replay conversations long after they're over, and sometimes feel uneasy when someone is kind too quickly. To other people, it can look like you're distant or suspicious. But beneath the surface, it often isn't about expecting the worst from everyone. It's about quietly waiting to feel safe enough to believe the best. So why does your mind keep one foot near the exit, even when nothing seems wrong? And if you've ever caught yourself doing this, let me know in the comments. You're probably not alone. This is Psychology Streamlined, where we untangle the hidden patterns of the human mind. Before anything else, it's worth saying something your mind may not tell you very often. You're not broken. The way you move through relationships, conversations, and trust didn't appear out of nowhere. Your brain has been paying attention your entire life. It remembers moments you've forgotten consciously but still carry emotionally. Every hesitation, every pause before opening up, every instinct to wait and see. Those reactions usually come from a mind that's trying to protect something valuable. Not because it's weak, because it learned that not everyone who smiles stays. Trust is one of the few things we never notice until it's difficult. For some people, trusting happens naturally. For others, it feels like handing someone a glass object they've never proven they can hold. You might notice this in small moments. Someone invites you into their life, and instead of feeling excited, your first thought is, what do they really want? A friend says they'll always be there, and a quiet voice inside whispers, we'll see. Even compliments can feel strangely uncomfortable, as if there's something hidden behind them. Psychologically, this often has less to do with the people standing in front of you and more to do with the emotional patterns standing behind you. Our brains build expectations from repeated experiences. If unpredictability showed up early enough, consistency starts feeling unfamiliar. If affection sometimes disappeared without warning, certainty begins to feel temporary. Your nervous system isn't trying to make you lonely. It's trying to prevent old pain from happening again. That's why trust can feel less like opening a door and more like walking across thin ice. You don't necessarily expect it to break. You just never stop listening for the cracks. Sometimes this pattern becomes most visible in relationships. You may care deeply about someone, but still hesitate to depend on them. You answer messages, spend time together, laugh together, yet emotionally, there's always another room inside you that stays locked. This can be connected to something psychologists often describe through attachment patterns. When emotional safety felt inconsistent growing up, closeness itself can become confusing. Part of you wants connection. Another part quietly prepares for disappointment. It's like driving with one foot on the accelerator and the other hovering over the brake. Not because you're indecisive, because your brain learned that closeness sometimes came with pain. So it protects both possibilities at once. The interesting part is that this protection often becomes invisible. People may describe you as independent, self-sufficient, hard to read. Those descriptions aren't always wrong. But sometimes independence isn't simply confidence. Sometimes it's emotional insurance. It's the quiet promise you make to yourself that if no one else stays, you'll survive anyway. That promise can feel incredibly strong and incredibly lonely. Then there are the everyday moments people rarely notice. The way you scan someone's tone for subtle changes. The way you wonder if silence means distance. The way one canceled plan suddenly makes your mind revisit every relationship you've ever lost. To someone else, these reactions might seem exaggerated. Inside your brain, though, they're attempts to predict the future. Predictability creates safety. If your mind believes it can see disappointment before it arrives, maybe it won't hurt as much when it happens. The problem is that anticipation and reality aren't always the same thing. Yet the brain often treats them as if they are. But here's the part nobody tells you. Sometimes distrust isn't really about doubting other people. It's about doubting your own ability to recover if they leave. And that changes everything. If psychology like this helps you understand yourself a little better, subscribe to Psychology Streamlined. There's always more beneath the surface. The brain has one more trick here. When you've experienced emotional uncertainty, certainty itself can start feeling suspicious. Someone remembers your birthday, checks in consistently, shows patience. Instead of relaxing, your mind asks, why? Because predictable kindness doesn't match the emotional map you learned years ago. It's like walking into a perfectly quiet room after living beside constant traffic. The silence feels unfamiliar enough to make you listen even harder. That's one of the strange paradoxes of human psychology. We don't always move toward what's healthiest. We often move toward what's most familiar. Even familiarity that once hurt us can feel strangely recognizable. Not because we enjoy pain, because the brain values predictability above almost everything else. As life changes, this pattern changes too. In your younger years, distrust may have looked like avoiding certain friendships or keeping secrets. Later, it may appear as taking longer to commit, questioning compliments, or feeling emotionally exhausted after social gatherings. The behavior evolves. It becomes quieter, more sophisticated. From the outside, people may simply see someone who's cautious. Inside, your brain is still asking the same timeless question. Is it safe now? What's fascinating is that the question rarely disappears completely. It just finds new places to hide. It can appear at work when someone praises your efforts. It can appear in friendships that suddenly become close. It can appear when life is finally calm, making you wonder if something bad must be coming next. The action changes. The emotional purpose remains remarkably similar. Because underneath it all, distrust often serves another psychological function. It regulates emotion. Imagine carrying an invisible blanket through a storm. The storm doesn't stop. But holding the blanket makes the weather feel slightly more manageable. For many people, emotional caution becomes that blanket. Keeping expectations low softens disappointment. Watching carefully restores a sense of control. Predicting problems reduces the mental chaos of uncertainty. It becomes an anchor. Not because it removes fear, because it gives fear somewhere familiar to stand. There's something deeply human about that. Our minds aren't designed only to seek happiness. They're designed to seek safety. Sometimes those two goals point in different directions. And when they do, safety almost always wins. That's why people who don't trust everyone often spend enormous emotional energy observing rather than speaking, listening rather than revealing, watching patterns instead of believing promises. Not because they're cold, because observation feels like home, because certainty feels earned, not given. And homes, even imperfect ones, are difficult to leave. I'm curious, when did you first notice this pattern in yourself? Sometimes naming it changes how we carry it. Perhaps that's the gentlest way to understand this part of yourself. Not as a flaw, not as a wall, but as a language your brain learned long before you had words for it. Every hesitation tells a story. Every pause before trusting reflects a history your nervous system still remembers. Some stories begin with consistency. Others begin with uncertainty. Neither makes someone more or less human. If you don't trust everyone, it doesn't automatically mean you've become cynical. It may simply mean your mind learned to protect hope by holding it carefully. And maybe that's why this pattern feels so complicated. It can keep pain at a distance. It can also keep tenderness waiting outside the door. Both things can be true at the same time. Human beings are full of contradictions like that. The parts of us that once kept us safe don't always disappear. Sometimes they simply stay beside us, quietly reminding us of where we've been. Not to punish us, not to trap us, just because that's how memory often works. So if you've recognized yourself somewhere in these words, perhaps what you're seeing isn't evidence that something is wrong with you. Perhaps you're simply looking at a mind that learned, adapted, remembered, and kept going. And there's something profoundly human about that. And if this gave language to something you've felt for a long time, stay here with us at Psychology Streamlined. There's always more to understand.